we started this cheap sports car challenge, we decided to give ourselves a budget of $7,500 or less. But we also realized we didn't just want to buy something typical, we wanted a completely new experience.
So we chose these, the BMW Z4 and the Mercedes SLK. But since then the market's gone nuts, prices are through the roof. So we wondered, are cheap sports cars still available? And did we pick the right thing?
Well, that meant we had to gather all the other cars we could have bought to find out, did we choose correctly, and what are the other ones we might have chosen instead of ours?
So to be included here, we had to go the exact same parameters as when we shopped the first time. That means only two-seaters, only manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, less than 25 years old, and crucially, available right now on AutoTempest for less than $8,000.
You're watching Everyday Driver. We make a TV show, podcast,
and YouTube channels helping you find a car you'll love.
This is our second cheap car challenge, and with the help of AutoTempest, we're doing a year of adventures in $7,500 sports cars.
Subscribe so you don't miss a thing.
I think one of my favorite things about doing this cheap sports car challenge is answering in a roundabout way to all the podcast listeners from around the world that have written to us and said, guys, I really don't have a budget. I don't have 10 grand.
Definitely not.
And we have put these cars together through the entire year, but then we added all the other cars that we could have chosen. And here we are still driving these cars.
Yep.
We've done everything we can think of, including tracking and drag racing these cars. We've driven them all winter long and done things that typical sports car owners might not. But that price level makes it so accessible.
Here,
it
there's
makes
freedom
it
in it, yeah.
almost throwaway.
Yeah. So here we are in my BMW Z4 that I bought about a year ago. You went with me, we went down to Arizona, we bought it, and we have driven it through multiple challenges at this point.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that trip.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it all. We went down to Arizona and drove it back.
Oh,
yes.
that was hot. It's hot today, but that was hot too.
Yeah, that was a hot one.
Cool. And when we went to Phoenix, I was riding shotgun a lot of the time.
Yep.
And thinking, it's small, it's a small sports car, but this is great, this is comfortable. And it wasn't too bad with the top up either.
It is a convertible. The convertible there has 3 motors, one of which is currently broken, the one that actually drops it. The release one works, the suck it into the body works, the one that moves it, it became a manual top without being as simple as the Miata. But $7,000 for this is the key thing.
Yeah.
I bought it at 113,000 miles. It now has almost 118. We have driven these cars. Along those lines, this car parked outside. This is the 4th car in a row I've had park outside in the winter, and this was the one that started the easiest every single time. This one just popped to life and said, let's go do something. 6-speed manual, straight 6, 3-liter BMW engine, and I have to say that the best thing about this car is that engine. This is not a powerhouse of a car. It has 225 horsepower, 215 pound-feet of torque. Yep. This is naturally aspirated. We're in altitude. This is not a, I'm going to wow you with power. But that's the thing about a lot of these small, older, little convertibles, is they're not overly powerful, but you hope that the dynamics are good.
Yeah.
Gearbox is standard BMW, kind of a little bit rubbery manual. I don't love that.
Sure.
But that, look, come on. 4,000 to 6,000 RPM in this car is just a joy.
Well, you've got to take a look at the exterior of this car. I think it's aged fantastically well.
Yes.
As the best example of Chris Bangle's flame surfacing from that era. I like this. Have you noticed the Z in the side of the car now?
Yeah.
All those little subtle things. Oh, that engine. It's the mechanics.
Yeah.
It's that combination of the downshift, getting your heel and toe right, and throwing the car in, just hanging on.
Yep.
That body roll. God.
Yeah, the body roll's a little terrifying, honestly.
But it does, and that is the magic of the Z4. I think that's the entire thing about this car, and that's why these cars will be so valuable in the future. I don't mean financially, though.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean from a driving pleasure standpoint.
Yeah.
And that is the entire point of this cheap sports car challenge. All of these cars will be valuable to the driving enthusiast community. Oh, yeah, little squeal, little squeal.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. There's no feel.
There's no steering feel, but the car will track for you.
It will stay on track.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
You have to trust that it will because it isn't telling you that it is.
Yeah.
Which is really strange.
That's just a I've got confidence in German engineering.
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
It's going to happen for me, right?
And I think that concern is accentuated by the fact we're sitting over the back axle. It makes the car feel like everything's going on without me. It's way up here with no information.
Yeah, right.
You know?
These cars have just run.
Yeah.
We've beat on them. We haven't really loved on them, but we have loved them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And they are endearing. They're extra endearing because of the price. You know, if we'd spent 20,
everything is extra.
I know,
because of the
but
price.
if we'd spent 25 grand on these, I think we'd be a lot stricter on them. At
True.
$7,000, it's like, how am I not having a good day right now?
Yeah, for
you know, it's
sure.
just fun.
I agree. This is my SLK, the 2006 that I bought for $6,500.
Why is your hand up over there?
Well, when I bought it, the top worked, and I thought I had solved the mystery ooze problem because every time I washed the car, it dripped from either corner. So I have added a rag to the optional equipment to dab the ooze when you go around the corner. It doesn't just drip, it now sloshes out onto your leg.
I'm excited about corners
and
now.
you have to put your pants in the washer.
Yes.
Nevertheless, the car has run. That's hydraulic. That's hydraulic fluid.
Of course it is, yes.
But that's why the top doesn't go up and down anymore, because it's all leaked out somewhere in the internals, and we haven't figured out quite where yet. We haven't really looked too hard, but
That is the thing about cheap sports cars. You just got to buy them and stuff works or it doesn't. It's a deal, yeah.
what that means is this is the ultra rare SLK Coupe in the manual, and it does have a 6-speed manual transmission. And that is the best part about this car.
Yeah.
Mercedes builds a manual transmission.
Pretty cool.
That is brilliant.
And
it
it-
shifts well.
Yes.
It feels good.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to use, and it is something that enthusiasts will still want. 228 horsepower. This is a V6 with a raft of problems from the factory. But the beauty is, this car has survived. It's reliable.
Absolutely, it
I
has
say
been.
that out loud. The car can hear me. Yet the driving dynamics, just like the Z4, is still where the money's at. It's the interaction between pedal and shifter and steering. The steering is not great on this car either.
But it's still better than the Z4.
It's better than the Z4, and the car holds its weight. When you finally throw it in and you get settled, it does hold itself. Okay.
We're going to use all of our 228 horsepower here.
That was redlined. See, look
at
at
you.
that.
All right.
That is proof that the higher in the RPM band that you go, the less scary things get. Oh, there's the fluid. Oh, gosh. See, I told you.
Don't hit anything. Let's.
Oh, man. That was exciting.
Found more. That was good.
But nevertheless, this car just runs. It's 200 pounds too heavy. It should be 3,000. You settle in the corner, and now it actually...
Waiting for ooze on my side, but
it might happen.
Yeah, but
But now
surprisingly good, yes.
It's very stable and is very confidence inspiring. Well, the wheelbase on this is just over an inch longer than a Cayman. And I always come back to the Cayman as my benchmark for rotation. You can start to feel that short car rotation thing.
It's a real surprise.
It's too soft and heavy of a car.
Yeah, and everything
for
about
the size of it.
Its reputation and the fact that this is one of the lower ones in the range.
Yes,
It shouldn't
it is
hold
the
up as
lowest.
well as it does. Yeah.
All in all, this is a pretty impressive little car. 156,747 miles on this right now. So the Mercedes build quality is still deep inside there.
They made sure it felt like the rest of their lineup, which means it feels bigger than it should.
And
it's
heavy,
it's a tiny car,
Yeah.
and it feels surprisingly big. When you and I have taken like long road trip drives, you're better off. This top, for all of its difficulty and for all of its complication, the actual sound deadening and everything, excellent. This feels like a coupe with a top up.
That is the reason to buy the hardtop convertible, because you do get that road trip thing, and it suddenly feels like a coupe, the coupe that it now is and has become.
When it fuses itself and becomes a coupe, it's good. It's a good coupe. The thing I'm surprised by every single time I drive this, especially when I jump in it like I just did after the Z4, is I'm really surprised by how spoiled I feel by the seat. Because the driver's seat in the Z4 is
That's so funny.
It's bad. It's gotten uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But yet this driver's seat is very supportive, and I've got a lot of space too. This is a tiny car with a ton of cabin space. This handles really well for a 4-door, 4-seat sedan.
Yes, it does.
That's how it feels.
Yes,
it
it
feels
does.
like Mercedes took the time to make sure that it handles like their small C-Class.
Agreed.
And that is really weird when your body tells you I'm in a little car. And it weighs 200 pounds more than the Z4, but I submit to you it feels like it weighs 600 or 800 pounds more. It feels really heavy compared to the Z4.
Yeah.
It feels much heavier than 200 pounds suggests both this car and my Z4 were probably 45,000 or more new.
This was a 48 car,
So-
48,000.
So
Pushing
that's
50.
That's the thing. You're pushing $50,000 on a convertible. That I would argue that neither of these were worth that new. But
I'm with
at
you on that.
$7,000 for the Z4, $6,500 here, it really takes on this demeanor of, I always liked those. Why not?
Especially with a manual transmission. I don't think we'll ever see a manual from Mercedes ever again.
I was shocked you found a manual at all.
Totally.
And then for us to get in it and be like, this is a great manual transmission. I never in a million years did I think we'd say that.
That's what makes this
Yeah.
rare and special.
That's great.
And the sealed fuse top that won't go down because of the hydraulic fluid. I'm hoping it's just hydraulic fluid and therefore non-corrosive to skin
And pants and everything
and
else.
pants.
Yeah, got it.
I mean, see, it's just it stains everything.
Well, you can just wear a memento of your Mercedes. The minute that you say cheap sports car, you have to go talk Miata. So
Yes,
here we are.
you
And
do.
you've heard the acronym, of course. Miata is always the answer. Spells Miata. There it is. Here we have one, second-gen Miata. This
on.
one was bought for the kind of money we're talking about last year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
that's
the
right.
owner, we have to acknowledge, the owner actually likes to autocross this. So he's put on some sticky tires, he's put on some different sway bars, very standard things that
There's a
happen
bit
to
of
this car.
sandbagging going on here.
Yes, so
we
this
admit.
has got, this dives for corners.
It's almost not set up for this road.
It's searching for a cone like 50 feet off the nose.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is 140 horsepower, 119 pound-feet of torque out of a 1.8 liter from
Tiny.
the year 2000. There's nothing,
Yeah.
and that's why I don't like it, because I love power. But what I do love is that by the time the car gets around the track, it's not only caught up to the fast cars, it's now chewing on the back of them.
You're right.
And then the fast cars just leave them
You're
on the
right.
straightaway.
Yep.
This is the late NB generation. It is the special edition. You can see from that metallic burgundy wine-colored paint.
Yeah.
And then it's got the tan interior, so it looks spectacular. I have to downshift.
Not where it shines.
Come
And
on,
you're still
baby.
not going to get much more. I mean, that was
Come
like
on.
a fraction more.
Hey, we got up to the camper.
Yep.
I'm proud of that. That's the problem, and I've always wanted the power out of the hole, but what I love about the Miata is that it has taught generations of enthusiasts how to not rely on power.
You're right.
Rely on your momentum
Yep.
and learn the corners and take the better line through the corner, because the car can do it.
Yeah.
It's set
Yeah.
up to do it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We'll let him go ahead, so you have the pleasure of catching them.
I mean, this is early 2000s tech. We still have a tape deck and a CD player in here because, of course, all of
That's
these
so
cars,
cool.
they're all less than 25 years old, but that doesn't mean they aren't still quite old.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
this is old tech, so you're not going to be Bluetoothing anything unless you aftermarket this guy. But the interior is the exterior, is the whole premise of the car, and it is just so simple. It's just what you need, and it's done so well. I am just too big for this car. Now, I will admit that influences my love for it, because if I want to drive, I have to drive kind of like this. And that's just not, I want to be more comfortable in
Sure,
that.
but can you
That's
separate
not-
yourself from that enough to love the car, to acknowledge how great it is?
Well, that's the thing.
I'm not
That's-
that much better, but I have that one less vertebrae, so I'm actually okay. I'm looking through the tinted part of the windshield.
There you go. Yes, it's not a slight. It's not a, well, that car gets to be thrown out for it. Now, when we did our Miata generations, this car lost for that reason, because there
Yeah,
were others where I
true.
fit better. So yeah, I have to hunker.
This car is light.
But it's 2,400 pounds. I mean,
It's
just
so
under
light.
2,400 pounds. This is almost a difficult car to drive early on in the series, because
Yeah.
everything else now has to meet this. It's like we've established hero status and everybody else has to live up to it. That's difficult. Mazda did this so right. They did it right in the first gen, but every generation of the Miata has just been, if you need sports car, allow us to show you what that means.
Yeah.
It's not, there's nothing superfluous here. It's just, this is everything you need, and it's dialed in right, and it's so easy. There is nothing about this that has the least bit difficult to drive or understand or get used to. And if you're a person that's never enjoyed cars, I'm not sure why you're watching this video, but besides that,
First of all,
the Miata is the thing that can teach you a love of cars. That's what I
Yeah.
find so fascinating, because it is so accessible. There's nothing frightening about this, and there's also nothing precious about it.
yeah, this is just absurd. It's a little wrong to drive at first, but on the other hand, this is the thing that everybody thinks of
Yes.
when you want to get a cheap little
Yes,
sports car.
You're right.
what other cars can you name?
All the ones that
But
meet the
this
parameters
is the
are here.
one. This is the one that pops into your mind first, so we
Yep.
might as well drive it. After our 2 cars, we might as well just drive this first.
Yep.
Get it out of the way, get it done.
And let everybody else desperately try to catch up. I mean, I hate to say it,
Exactly.
but that's the struggle here. GM built a Miata. I mean, kind of. In the early 2000s, Bob
did.
Lutz was in charge of GM. They thought Miata's really cool.
And
Bob Lutz liked small sports cars, and the result is this, the Pontiac Solstice. And because they are the unknown car, they are available for cheap. This is the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder sports car thinking, 5-speed manual, one
great.
of the craziest, most complex top mechanisms you'll ever see, which leaves you with almost no trunk space. But it looks great, and you know what? It drives really well. 2,900 pounds here, which on one level, I'm really impressed that it's that light.
although it still feels like it could be lighter, because
It
you're
does.
way down in there.
It does,
You're
yes.
sitting, everything is pretty tall around you. Even though this instrument panel slopes towards the driver and passenger, it drops away pretty quick, but in comparison already to the Miata, which feels
That's the
like
fascinating
a
thing.
paper plate.
That's
comparison.
yes,
This feels robust.
This feels robust. It also, look at my space. Look,
You can
the
actually
wind is
fit.
over my head. I'm looking completely through the windshield.
It could
This
be
was
the seat that's
definitely
matted down. It could be the
a little
squished
bit,
foam.
but I can fit well in this car. I have space. It is a
Yeah.
roomy cabin. I don't have any of the problems that I had in the NB. Now, this doesn't feel as light on its feet as that NB, but 177 horsepower is decent.
It's decent.
What it does is it creates that same momentum think that you have in the Miata, where you
Yeah.
have to earn your speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It actually,
Yeah.
it turns in pretty quick, and it's wonderfully progressive. There's just, you turn in and the body roll, everything just follows exactly as you anticipate it will. You think it's gonna feel like this, and then it feels that way or better.
Now, there are many versions of this as far as wear and age
Yep.
and how well it's been kept.
Yep.
This particular example is
It's pristine.
it's worth more than $8,000.
Yes.
But many of them are as low as $5,000. This reset Pontiac's entire look. There weren't just typical shapes around the car.
Yeah.
It was just clean and surface, and the proportions really do work well. Look at the interior. I will say that it looks a lot like the Toyota A80 4th generation Supra. It's
Interesting
very
point.
driver focused,
Yes.
and it's just a flat panel with the knobs just kind of stuck on. It almost feels kit car in a way.
Yeah. I think this interior is the one place that says early 2000s GM.
For sure.
Because it is this.
It will not wear.
It's plastic
GM will not
fantastic
let
in here.
wear happen on their plastics.
That's too bad. But you're right. The durability here is going to be through the roof. And if you can find the parts and pieces, you have something unique you just don't see. And you have to drive it. It drives so well.
There's road feel in this car,
Yes.
proving GM can do it.
Yes.
There is road feel, there's precision, and that means there's just fun to be had in
Yeah.
this car.
Yeah.
Ooh,
That's
the
okay.
compromises of this car, though, that's a struggle for me. You think, well, this is how the interior is.
Yeah.
These are the seats. I suppose if you just want a fun to drive convertible, then we'll say this is the backed off one. This is the 6/7
Yeah.
It's just a fun, beautiful car to look at. And it does, I think it's one of the prettiest cars of our lineup. But I love the styling. I love these twin humps. I love the crisp line on top of the shoulders, on top of the fender humps up here. It's a little bit more of the cruiser here,
Yeah.
I think. But I think it kind of competes against the SLK in that sense. That's the cruiser.
This almost feels middle ground between the Miata and your SLK.
I think you're
I
right.
feel like this is the midpoint.
I think you're right.
And the Miata, look, it is little and it's flighty, and so this doesn't have some of that demeanor, but every time I drive this, I'm surprised by how well set up it is.
Yeah.
And I think it is seriously overlooked as a fun car. This interior is not aging well, and there isn't support, and these are the things that are keeping the prices of these down.
Sure.
And if you're shopping under $8,000, there is a litany of these available, and they're going to be great.
I haven't found my want yet.
Oh, okay.
I like the dynamics. I love how this car looks. I haven't found the want.
Okay.
It hasn't pushed me over the edge yet.
This is a 2001 BMW Z3 that was bought this week ahead of this shoot. The new owner put new tires on it,
Yep.
and here it is.
This is Miata thinking.
It is.
And we just got out of the Solstice. Both of these cars are 2,900 pounds.
Isn't that interesting?
They
both
feel
weigh the same.
Completely different.
Completely. I didn't expect this $4,800 car to feel this good. You know, that Z4, I've mentioned at least once that there's no steering feel. This has some.
It does. It's
this
surprising.
has a hydraulic steering rack, and it actually has steering feel. You can tell what's going on. New tires on this. Yeah, okay, the control arms, the bushings are bad, and so it's got a little bit of a delay, but it's so predictable. And it's just nice. I can feel here that classic BMW steering that has gone away with their electronic steering racks and is non-existent in my car.
Yeah. The seating position is very far back in the car, which makes this long nose feel. I think you dubbed it the camel nose. I think that's what this is known as. 20 years later, 22 years later, this is starting to look pretty good. Styling that people think, nah, it's not going to look good years from now, suddenly looks good.
Sometimes
years
it comes
from
into
now,
its
suddenly
own.
it's
Yeah.
great. Listen to that, it even sounds good.
It does.
2.5 liter straight six making 184 horsepower. You can get the bigger engine than this, but this was the lowest engine, the base model engine that you could get for North America.
Yeah, in 01, this was the lowest engine. The other one was the 3 liter that had pretty similar stats, a little over 200 horsepower and torque to my Z4. That sounds good.
I like this car. I like how it shifts. I like the seating position. Now we're starting to get back into that mysterious want factor.
Oh, really? This taps into that for you? Okay.
It does,
okay.
Because I start to feel the difference in engineering and what German engineers put their efforts into and what they cared about. There's third. It still feels crisp. You can still feel the shifts.
I think that shifter's better than the one in my Z4. I know the steering's better. I think shifter
Steering's
might be better too.
Yeah. Throw that in. There's cars that are nimble and they dance, but there's this solid gravitas to this car, but it isn't weight. Because we felt weight in the Solstice.
Yeah.
It's the way this car moves itself. It holds itself through corners. Pretty impressed. 22 years later, cheap, janky Z3s. Still going strong. It's kind of exciting. Oh yeah, that's so easy now. See, the Miata proportions, it's about this size, but the interior has far more space. And I've got space to do heel and towing. It's hard to heel and tow when you don't have a tack. It just makes it a little more adventurous.
It's hard to do a lot of things, like, you know, shifted red line over the tack too. Now the fuel cutoff works. We think we have enough fuel too. We're not sure. That doesn't work either.
All that works is the trip gauge and there's a speedometer.
The speedometer is moving, but we're not sure it's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, we think it's about 10 miles an hour fast based on GPS. So
I cannot stress enough. $4,800.
So well bought. And the air conditioning's cold.
The air conditioning will freeze you out of the car.
Great.
The top leaks a little bit. Because of course it does. Also, the electric part of the top does not work. The latches work,
right?
But you have to toss it back manually. Currently, neither one of our tops work right on our cheap sports cars, so I can't really say that's a dig against this car.
Right.
Ours were bought for more.
It's
just broke.
Equal. See, holds the line. There's some precision there.
It's also a public service announcement about the benefit of good tires.
It really is. It's changed it dramatically.
Yeah, come on.
You're gonna start looking for Z3s again. I know you are.
You can buy a Z3 for cheap Miata numbers and wind up with a cool car.
And you're not driving a Miata.
Yep.
You're driving a BMW, back in a German car. This is a 2007 Nissan 350Z. It is hard to find one completely stock, but it's really good out of the gate. It's really good off the showroom floor, and that is testament to how good the platform is and the fact that there's an entire race series crafted around the 350Z. That speaks volumes.
Yes.
Well, this is an 07, so this is the first year of a mid-cycle refresh. It's called the HR for high revving. It's got a little bit more power, up to 306 now. This also, stylistically speaking, is a pretty big departure for Nissan. You look at the back end of this thing, it's wide, it looks like a race car, it looks fast. The way this car drives is initially heavy when you turn it in. You can feel that Nissan put most of their engineering efforts into the mechanicals, into the drivetrain. It's also dramatically heavier, 3,400 pounds.
Yep. It's also
This
the
is
coupe.
it's the coupe. Very true. I'd never liked them in the convertible. I never thought they were good looking.
No, I don't think they're good cars in the convertible. They're not stiff enough.
Yeah, I never liked them. But what I love about us including this is it is a genuine sports car.
Yep, and get the 03s, 4s, 5s. Those are available for this $8,000 figure very easily.
It's interesting. The car wallows just a little bit, and then as soon as you go a little bit more with your steering, it plants itself and it goes through the corner. Brilliantly, I might add. It's just ever so slightly vague at that turn in. And this is one of the cars that you can come hard into a corner, downshift, and it's got the power to get you out.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I can't say that the styling has aged really well. I can't really...
It looks old. It does.
I don't love the styling. I never really loved it when the car came out, but I do appreciate that signature line. It's that window outline. It's that shape from the A-pillar all the way to the back that is very Z-car and what Nissan has done. I love the turn switches. I love the driver-focused interior. And of course, just like the old ones, the gauges are angled at the driver. But the rest of the interior, it was cheap new, and it's even more so now. It's not good. But then you have to think about what are your priorities. And if you do want to do some modding, I think this and the Miata are really the ones that are up there as far as parts availability, community, and enthusiasm for modding these things. All right, well, you have to feel this heavy feel. This thing just roars.
It does.
It's not a delicate instrument. Visibility is great in this
Visibility
car.
is good. You're not way down in the car feeling like you're swallowed by it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got good headroom. I could wear a helmet in this car.
Yeah.
You've got some storage. The storage on this car was never very good,
It's
but
okay.
there is some.
It's better than most. It's better than many of the cars here.
Going to use all 306 horsepower.
Yeah.
6 more thanks to 2007.
That's right.
2006, I might not be able to do this pass, but with a 2007, passing.
See, thrashy and roaring. Yeah.
That's a speed I haven't seen all day, actually. That's pretty impressive. I like this rotation a lot. The car feels heavy, though.
It's very heavy.
It definitely feels heavy. Hundreds of pounds heavier than everything else we brought. It definitely feels like a heavy car. Now, it is going to be robust. It's proven to be robust. This engine has known to kind of outlive the world because there's so many parts, if nothing else.
This kind of begs to be thrashed on in a weird
It does
way.
have that demeanor. Well, also when you buy one cheap, you just think I bought a cheap Z car. It's the exact opposite feeling that you get from some of these German cars. You buy a really cheap German car and you're just going to go, I don't know, should I push this?
It's delicate.
You buy
Don't do
this
anything.
car for cheap and you just think, let's go thrash on
Exactly.
that. Let's go drift it. Let's go track it. What could possibly go wrong? That's the demeanor that this suggests. And when you get in and drive it, it seems to hold up to that, to be like, yeah, you want to bring it? Let's go. Coming into this, I was like, the 350Z should be here. I'm driving it now and going, the 350Z is really a good driver's car.
Absolutely, it should be here. Really trying to decide and weigh my wants right now. Do I want this? I think my answer is only if I were doing a race series, because it does feel so robust. It feels so thrashy. And
Go buy a track car.
on.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think there's better choices here if you just want a fun cruiser or even just a lightweight sports car. I think there's better choices.
I don't know if you knew, but you can get Porsche Boxsters for less than $8,000. And I almost got one for our cheap car challenge because it was the car no one expected me to get until you passed up on a beautiful Z4 and I went, I've never owned a BMW. So I got the Z4, not the Boxster, and now we're in the Porsche Boxster, which is still available for less than $8,000. This is an 03, so it's mid-cycle refresh on the original Boxster.
This is the 986.2. Bump the power, it's the 2.7 liter up to 225 horsepower, 5-speed. This is the perfect car. This is the perfect car for $8,000 and under.
Well, this is a huge contender. I mean, what's happening is you're watching this and going, there's no way I'm going to buy a cheap Boxster. Now, yes, IMS issues can be a thing, but they're not nearly as bad as you think. Maintenance will vary. You can find those cheap ones, and some people have not taken care of them, and yes, they could turn into money pits.
Yes,
However,
true.
This one has been very well maintained, 88,000 miles, and it feels new. It feels new.
It's superb. This car is why sound for Porsche will never go away. I'm predicting now.
Interesting.
This car feels far more robust or just as robust as any of the cars that we've got here. It's 2,800 pounds. It's fun to ride here.
It is.
This is superb.
And it's comfortable. That's the thing. This is one of the few that we have here that has walked that line of being dual purpose, of feeling like a small little roadster on a back road, but also feeling like a decent place to just drive cross country. I sprang to the Miata first.
Okay.
Seemed like a great place to drive, but not a great place to sit for a long time to do a road trip.
This is brilliant.
This is a great place to drive,
Yep.
but you could do the entire US on just back roads and be happy. Now, that's something that I do think is a little more evident in the two cars we got than some of the rest of these, but dynamically, this is at the levels of the Miata, while it's at the GT levels of the other cars. It actually is doing both
Really is.
incredibly well.
I can't wait to drive.
Yeah,
Can't wait to drive.
I'll let you talk about styling after you change.
Yes. I'm home. I'm home. This is where I need to be. This is, oh.
Wonder which car
This is
Paul's going
great.
to pick to move on. Give me a minute. I'm gonna
Now
have to
that
think
I
about
have,
it.
held myself back, and
Now
I've
you're
shown
not
my
anymore. Yeah.
unbiased.
This interior was old and awful the day they released it. It was in the 996, 911 as well. It's just, it wasn't a good interior choice. It hasn't aged well. At this price, though, I don't care anymore. I don't care.
You have to stop caring, but the best part about it is in gray and black. It looks the best, but I think this stylistically is one of the prettiest cars still. And to
Really?
think that you can buy a pretty Porsche for $8,000 or less.
I don't think this is all that attractive. And I think it's gotten a little more attractive over time. I think we've gotten used to the fried egg headlights.
I'm separating shape from graphics. I'm not
Okay.
looking at the graphic of the light or
Sure.
the tail
Just
light or the
the
headlight.
base,
I'm looking at the form.
Boxster shape. Okay,
Just
all right.
the form itself, and that's what I
Okay.
mean when I say pretty. I don't mean, okay, I'll give you the fried egg headlights. Those didn't age well.
If you buy this car for less than $8,000, no one that sees you pull up in it will think you spent less than $8,000. This is a lot of car for the money. That's the thing I can't get past, is I think
It
of all the
is.
cars we have here, this is the one where you're shocked at what you got the most.
When you throw this into the corner, you have that German car solidity, that X factor that I've been looking for. But now it feels light. Now it feels delicate and interesting. There's feedback. And the car kind of just rotates right around you. It's like wearing a backpack. You can connect corners and it's
Yes.
still got enough. It's about
Yes.
the same power as your and I's Z4 and SLK 280. The Porsche is the shining example, in my opinion, to put money into to keep them running because of how the dynamics are. I tried. I really did.
Paul likes the Porsche. If you followed along to the podcast or the videos for 5 minutes to know that he likes Porsches and he owns a Porsche, this should not be a surprise. However, in
Really
this
did.
case, I will back you up. This is great, especially for the money. It's phenomenal.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
It's true. Toyota MR2 Spyder is completely in the middle of what we're talking about. And I think it gets overlooked and forgotten, and I'm so glad we have it as part of this.
I'm really glad too. It's another mid-engine car up in the mix.
But what's crazy is, at under 10 grand, and even under the 8 that we've got here, there's a lot of these out there. People have just forgotten these cars exist, and it is the cheap way to buy into mid-engine, like even more so than the Boxster.
It looks cheap, it feels cheap, but you know, that's part of its charm in a weird way.
Yes.
Well, this particular example has just been driven, and I'm glad we've got it because
Yep.
that does push it under our $8,000 price cap.
Yep.
It's the lightest car here. It's 2,200 pounds.
It's 200 pounds lighter than the Miata.
Yes. Also a 1.8 liter though, and making very low horsepower.
It also is the lowest power here, 138 horsepower, 125 pound-feet of torque.
It's not a lot.
It's both lighter and less powerful than the Miata. What's interesting is it's faster than the Miata 0 to 60 because it doesn't weigh anything.
Right.
Is it possible that Toyota was copying off of Porsche's paper?
It
This
is
even
absolutely
This
possible.
even looks like the Boxster.
It does. Well, it's not nearly as pretty.
It's not as attractive,
Looks like
but
the Boxster for architecture.
But even like the headlights looking a little bit weird on the shape and everything like that, it looks like somebody was making the low-price Boxster.
I'm surprised that I kind of like it, to be honest, but maybe I shouldn't be because, you know, we both love the mid-engine thing so much.
Yeah.
It really rotates well. There's no dead spot in the steering. It is superb.
With that mid-engine architecture, it creates that scenario where it's not going to be as forgiving as the Miata if you really pushed it hard. But in this, I'm on a canyon road, it's just easy.
Am I in fifth? I'm already in
I
fifth?
believe so, yep.
There's no more gears?
This,
But you're hearing nothing of the engine.
no, not at all.
Mind you, you don't want to.
Yeah.
This is not the beautiful engine note that you want to hear.
This is a strange left turn from the two MR2s prior, which also were small and also
Yeah.
were mid-engine.
But the first two generations of the MR2 looked way better than this.
It's not attractive.
It's not.
It's not
Nothing
attractive,
about it is. It's very slab and brutal, and
It's got a frog face and a very cheap feeling interior.
it does.
But it is back to, we've been talking a lot in this discussion about when a car is distilling down the driving, and this has done that very well. All right, I need to drive. I'm excited.
You do.
Doesn't sound good low.
Nothing about this car sounds good. See, this is not the car you want to hear. It sounds like
I'm wondering if that engine always sounds that way or if that's just this one. That is surprisingly thrashy. This
They sound
1.8
better.
liter, besides not sounding great, it's a little sluggish initially. Now, once you get it above...
A little?
Well, but it's...
A little sluggish.
I just...
A little sluggish.
The car doesn't need power to go quickly because it weighs so little.
Oh, you're
And
going to pass this
I'm
guy?
going to pass him. I'm going to go
aren't
for
you
it.
Ballsy.
I am.
I'm just going to hold on
I'm
tight.
dedicating myself to it. All right, we got it. We made it. We're good. This is absolutely an alternate for somebody that thinks, I can't afford a Lotus Elise and I don't want a Porsche Boxster. If you weren't going to buy one of those two, but you want something in that vein, this is absolutely along those lines.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed they are as cheap as they are. I found decent ones of this on AutoTempest for as low as $5,000, $6,000. Now, when you compare that to that $5,000 Z3 we had, which looked harsh, I'm amazed at how much car you get for this at $5,000. As far as leg room and shoulder room, it's pretty good. It's not quite as tight for headroom as the Miata. It's more in that vein than some of the other cars. It's a little tight for headroom in here. And I do think of all the cars we've driven, this is one of the ones that I think is the most compelling at the price because you're the least worried about the reliability.
Yeah.
So you have that security because it's a Toyota product, but then you get that somewhat exotic rotation feel because it's mid-engine. This makes this really compelling and surprising.
I agree. I wanted to not like it. I wanted to. I still want to.
You want to not like it because it's the unattractive bargain basement Boxster, and that offends you.
It offends me.
That's why.
I am angry.
You can't help yourself. It's still good.
It's still good. Much to my chagrin. My utter chagrin. It's still good.
What I like about this the most is not only was this a huge day,
It was a huge day.
but every one of these cars is available right now for less than $8,000, and all of them are more fun than some boring sedan or SUV. That's what I like about it the most. We're moving this on to only 5 cars. Our 2 are going through because we do have to see if we were boneheads and picked the wrong thing.
Right.
So we'll take our own cars through, but I'm going to pick a car, Paul's going to pick a car, and we're going to agree on a car, and I think...
We kind of have to agree on the Miata. It would be a little suspect if we didn't include a Miata as the car to go through.
the Miata is the car we can all agree on.
I'm so impressed with all these cars, especially when you keep reminding yourself of how much you paid. But now I have to choose one addition to the car, the SLK, and it is the Boxster. It's so good. $8 grand for that car?
The Boxster is a great choice. I have to pick a car as well, and there was one car here today that really surprised me. I mean, they were all better than I expected them to be, honestly. They were all like genuine sports cars. That's why I can't believe we keep buying SUVs.
Yes.
You could be driving these.
Yes.
Sorry. In spite of that, the car that I would pick to move on, because I just drove it and thought, come on, this car's being overlooked, and I probably should have bought it, it's the MR2 Spyder.
We couldn't have done this cheap sports car challenge without AutoTempest and Power Stop brakes. We thank them tremendously. You know, we thank all the owners who have these cars and have brought them and shared them with us. But that just means they already know. That means you need to become an owner too.
Join us next week for an epic 5-car comparison.
No proper sports car comparison can happen without a Miata being present.
Everyone is going to beat you at the stoplight.
They're all out there for under $8,000.
But did we pick the right one? Search using our cheap sports car rules on AutoTempest.
Hit the link in the video description and tell us in the comments what you found.